Harmattan brought her, by Chris. I remember the dust first. Fine, reddish grains hanging in the air like forgotten memories. It settled on clothes, skin, even your thoughts if you weren't careful. Ogun State wasn't my dream posting. I had been banking on Abuja or even Ibadan. Something a little less rustic. But NYSC doesn't care about dreams. I got my letter, sighed heavily, and packed my box for Abeokuta. My PPA was a community secondary school in a small town called Ileshan Remo, not far from my G-board. The road there was a single ribbon of tarmac, choked by potholes and bordered by endless green. The school had more goats than functioning chairs, and the staff room was barely more than a shed with a leaking zinc roof. I didn't complain, not out loud. But I counted the days. Then came Adunni. She wasn't the kind of girl you noticed instantly, not in that loud, city girl kind of way. But she had this quiet grace. Every day, after school, I'd see her sitting under an old almond tree just outside the gate, selling roasted groundnuts and oranges arranged in neat piles like she'd studied geometry. "Good afternoon, Copper sir," she said the first time, her smile as open as the sky. "Good afternoon," I replied, tired, probably frowning. "You don't like groundnut?" She teased, tilting her head. I paused. But a small rap, partly out of politeness, partly because her tone had warmed something inside me. That was the beginning. Over the weeks, I started to look forward to those 5-minute chats more than my actual classes. She was 23, same age as me. Never went to university. Her father had died when she was 17, and she had to stay behind to help her mother with the farm. But Adunni was sharp, witty. She dropped bits of wisdom like seeds, and somehow, they'd grow in your mind hours later. "You Lagos boys talk too much," she'd say, eyes twinkling. "But when it's time to mean something, you start forming serious face." And I'd laugh, loudly. She taught me things without ever making me feel stupid. How to peel agbolumo properly. How to know when rain was coming just by watching the birds. How to build a fire with wet wood, and more importantly, how to be still, how to listen. I remember the night I first realized I was in trouble. It was late October. I had stayed behind at the school to help mark exam scripts. By the time I left, the sun had slipped beneath the hills and the crickets were in full chorus. I found her still at her usual spot, packing up. "You've not gone home?" I asked, surprised. She looked up, her scarf a little loose, revealing the fine curve of her neck. "I was waiting to see if you'd pass," she said simply. My chest tightened. I didn't know what to say, so I walked her home. Her compound was tucked away behind a narrow footpath. Mud brick walls, a small garden of bitter leaf and okra, and the scent of firewood smoke in the air. Her mother, Mama Sod, was skeptical at first, understandably. I was a stranger, and was a copper. Everyone knew coppers came, played around, and left. But I kept coming back. Every afternoon. Every Sunday after church. Every small festival the town celebrated, I was there. Helping, dancing, laughing. There were moments we both tried to pull back. I remember one evening under the almond tree when I told her, "I'm leaving in less than a year. I don't want to start something I can't finish." She looked at me, eyes steady. "Then don't start it. But don't lie to yourself that it hasn't already started." She was right. My service year ended on a breezy January morning. The passing out parade was short and sweet. There were photos, congratulations, tired salutes. But none of it mattered. Because I knew what came next. At the junction that led to her village, Adunni was waiting. No makeup. No drama. Just that same scarf and that same almond tree behind her. I walked up to her, unsure of how to even say goodbye. "Don't make any promises," she said quietly. "Just do what you know is right." I hugged her, tight, and left. A year later, we got married in that same town, under that same almond tree. Adunni isn't just my wife. She's my balance. My reminder that love doesn't always come with a bang. Sometimes, it arrives gently, in roasted groundnuts, slow sunsets, and the smell of rain in dry season. Part 2, the space between two words returning to Lagos after NYSC felt like stepping into another universe. Horns blaring. Street hawkers weaving through traffic like dancers. Rent was ridiculous. My job as a junior analyst paid barely enough, and the city swallowed time faster than memory. But no matter how noisy it got, Adunni's voice stayed clear in my mind. She'd call on Sundays, her Yoruba laced with laughter and something else. Something softer. I missed her. 3 months after NYSC, I told my parents I wanted to go back to Ilisha Remo. My father raised his brow above his newspaper. For what? There's someone I want you to meet, I said. My mother leaned in. Is she from your school days or? She's from my NYSC town. Her name is Adunni. They exchanged looks. Long, loaded looks. The first challenge came with silence. You see, my parents had plans. A quiet, upwardly mobile girl from our church, Kemi or Kemi something, they'd been hinting for months. A banker. City bred. Speaks English with a British lilt. My mother liked that. But I was stubborn. Maybe foolish. I took time off work, borrowed my uncle's car, and drove back to Ilishan. When I arrived at Adunni's compound, she was in the garden, hands covered in art, humming something I didn't recognize. She looked up, surprised, then smiled without a word. That evening, I met her whole family, her mother, uncles, even a few curious neighbors. They were warm, full of cautious joy, but joy nonetheless. I'll come with my people, I promised her. She nodded, but I could see something shift in her eyes, a hint of fear. She knew what was coming, maybe more than I did. The first meeting was tense. We went with wine and fruit, as tradition demanded. My parents came along, reluctant but curious. They expected a joke, a face. What they met was a family with pride and dignity, even without riches. They spoke Yoruba thick with rural cadence. My mother frowned several times. Father, Stanley, not looking away from the road, you want to marry a village girl you met selling groundnuts. Tunde, is that what 4 years of university was for? Mother, come but sharp, you think love will cook food in Lagos? Will she understand our world, our friends? Tunde, frustrated but trying to stay respectful, mommy, she may be from the village, but she has sense. More sense than some of the so-called city girls you're trying to force on me. Sister, arms crossed, sarcastic, so you're now defending bush romance. Just say you want to stress this family and go. Father, cutting in, this is not about pride. It's about compatibility, legacy. Marriage is not by emotion alone. Mother, softer this time, does she even know how to serve visitors? Speak properly. Will she embarrass us at functions? Tunde, quietly, looking out the window, she respects me. She grounds me. That's more than I can say about most people in this car. Sister, mocking poet, lover boy, we've heard. Father, gripping the wheel tighter, say anything again and I will turn this car around. She's pretty, my mother admitted later in the car. But are you thinking about your future? How will she adjust to Lagos? What will people say? She can learn, I said. And I don't care what people say. Love isn't enough, my father muttered. Especially when it crosses too many lines. Then came the real obstacle, the bride price list. In Yoruba culture, especially in more traditional towns, the bride price isn't just money, it's a symbol of respect. The list included everything from colonats and schnapps to boxes of clothes, tubers of yam, and a ram. My parents balked. They want to milk us dry. It's just culture, I argued. They are not asking for 10 cows. No, my father said flatly. If you marry her, you're on your own. And that was it. A line in the sand. I went ahead anyway. With help from my cousins and a few trusted friends, we gathered what we could. Adunni's family, sensing the tension, softened the list, even removed a few items. At the engagement ceremony, my parents showed up. Late, but they came. My mother wore her best girly but didn't smile much. My father sat like a statue through most of it. But when Adunni knelt to greet them, soft voice, respectful posture, something cracked in my mother's face. A pause. A moment of recognition. She has good manners, she admitted later. And she's got sense. Small victories. Lagos wasn't easy for Adunni. She struggled with the pace, the noise, the judgmental stares of people who assumed she was local and said so. But she adapted. Slowly. She took classes, learned how to navigate BRT buses, how to haggle in Yoruba without fear. She even opened a small food stand near our apartment. Her Ifo Raro quickly became popular among workers in the area. You married well, my landlord said once, licking his fingers after her ogbono soup. I know, I said, smiling. Love isn't just about chemistry. It's about endurance, through disapproval, through culture clash, through the unfamiliar. And through it all, Adunni stayed rooted.